Hi everyone, I thought I'd do a video here of my RC joystick and do something a bit more instructional on how it works, specifically the software and the menu system. Basically you've got elevators up and down, ailerons side to side, you've got rudder and throttle. That's the main basic functions, but I've also utilised the switches and top hat on the top for controlling a couple of the auxiliary channels. The buttons down here control the menu system. You've got a couple of the big buttons here for scrolling back and forward through the functions, and when you're into any particular function, those two buttons there, the smaller buttons, are sort of like an up-down control of the various parameters, or on or off of the various parameters. These two buttons here are specifically for use with my quadcopter for setting altitude, hold mode and rate mode, etc. Again, those just control a couple of the auxiliary channels on the PPM output. Okay, here we go. On power up you get a couple of beeps and then a version number. This is version 8.76 at the moment. And then you've got the opening screen. At the top left hand corner you've got the current battery voltage, which alternates with battery capacity in percentage. So you've got 78% left there. Below that you've got the current rates that are selected, high, medium or low. Next to that you've got the current model selected. The software's got a 4 model memory. Next to that there's the percentage for the two auxiliary potentiometer outputs, which is currently set to channels 7 and 8. Next to that you've got the auxiliary channels 5 and 6, which are currently set as digital outputs, so they're both set to 1 at the moment. The sticker at the side just for my quadcopter to signify what those two digital auxiliaries are set to. Okay, the first menu we're into is the trim for the aileron, elevator and rudder. Basically they're set to 0 at the moment, so ailerons flashing. So if I now use the two smaller buttons on joystick, I can go through and set the trim to whatever I want to. Positive and negative, of course. Back to 0 again. And then if I advance the function button, it then goes on to elevator, and you can do the same thing with that, and then the rudder. Next we're into elevon mode, which we can set on or off using the two buttons at the top again. Then we have exponential mode. This wasn't originally in the software, but I got a couple of requests for it. So basically you can set the ailerons or elevators or rudder to have an exponential characteristic to the joystick throw. So you can either set that to yes or no for any particular channel. You can also invert the PPM output for each of the channels, the aileron, elevator, rudder and throttle. So you can see there that the elevator is set to yes for inverting that. Obviously different models have the servos mounted differently, so it can often mean that you need to invert the output. Next is the auxiliary pot thumb button mode. Basically the thumb button on the joystick, when you press it you can tell the software to either output 0%, 50% or 100%, which is actually quite useful for if you've got the likes of a pan and tilt camera, and let's say you've got that controlled by a top hat, and if you want to immediately point the camera forward, you can perhaps set it to the mode to 50%, so whenever you hit the thumb button on the joystick, the ppm will obviously output at 50% and your camera is going to go point straight ahead, and when you release the button again it'll go back to the value it was previously set at. So that's for the thumb button. You've got exactly the same sort of idea for the trigger button on the joystick. Again, you can set that to 0, 50 or 100%. Next is the control over the ppm channel assignment. Basically at the moment there's your 8 channels and aileron, elevator, throttle, rudder, and the auxiliary channels S1 and S2, and the auxiliary ports P1 and P2. Basically you can reassign the ppm channels however you see fit. So at the moment aileron, the channel 1's flashing aileron at the moment, and I can basically scroll through them, and let's say channel 4 is rudder at the moment and I want to change that to something else. I can just hit the buttons on joystick there to reset that to whatever I want. So it's back to rudder again. The next one's test mode, which is basically just used for diagnostics, which will display the raw value from the potentiometers inside the joystick basically, and the ppm channel output. So at the moment you've got raw channel is 0 and ppm output 1. You can see that ppm output 1 is changing as I move the joystick, and you've basically got control over the two sides there independently, so you can monitor whatever you want. Next is the top hat mode on joystick. What its function will be, it's currently set to aux pot 1 and 2, so basically if I move the top hat on the joystick it will affect the auxiliary outputs, analog outputs 1 and 2, but you can change that to trim mode, so basically it will trim the elevator and the ailerons, so you can switch between the two modes for the top hat itself. Next is the model selection. Basically model 1 is selected at the moment, and you can scroll through the models there. Next we have the timer, which is displayed here, which we can start by pressing one of the buttons on the joystick, and off it goes. And we also have a throttle inhibit mode for the timer, which is off at the moment. So basically if the throttle is below a certain threshold then the timer will basically stop, because basically you're wanting to use a timer mode for gauging how long you're in the air and how much you're using on the battery. So we can turn on the throttle inhibit by pressing one of the other buttons on the joystick. The little asterisk appears. The timer inhibits, the throttle inhibits now on. The timer's actually stopped because the throttle is actually at 0. So if I now bring the throttle up above a certain threshold, I think it's 5%, then you can see the timer starts again. It continues from where it left off. So if I bring the throttle down again, throttle inhibit comes on again, etc. And then you can stop the timer. And that's it.